Guy on two wheels here. Guy on two wheels here.
So, guy on two wheels here.
Hey, guy on two wheels here.
Hey, guy on two wheels here. So it's July 4th, 2020, and I decided I was going to take a local ride. So I headed out to find as many dirt roads and ATV trails in my hometown that I could find. So I headed down to the river to do some riding along the river and some other trails that I might be able to come across throughout the day. So here I am headed into the wheat fields, or I should say the hay fields, on my way down to the river. You got to pass through 3 different fields in order to pick up the ATV trail that I wanted, and so that's what I'm doing right now. You know, during the springtime, this place gets real slick and real muddy, and it's a great place to improve your mud riding. But right now, it's actually dried out a little bit, and it makes for some good riding. Nice hard pack, and you can move along, but you can't move too fast because there are lots of different people that are down here. There are hikers and ATV and motorcycle riders and some four-wheelers. But probably the most important ones to look out for are the horseback riders. The family that owns the property rides horses, and so you've got to be really watchful for them, and also very respectful because they're kind enough to let us come down here and ride on their property without giving us any trouble. And you know, so you just got to watch where you are. Here I'm entering onto the ATV trail. It's going to run along the river edge. This is a nice little tight trail, lots of twists and turns, and it runs right along the riverbank. It's excellent, and like I said, during the spring, this place is slick and makes for some interesting riding. Right now it's just a beautiful summer day. So now, I'm continuing on the ATV trail and headed down more on the floodplain. I'm a bit away from the river at this point. But as I come down this road, it usually comes down to a gully. And usually this time of year you should be able to kind of cross the gully, but for some reason the gully was just filled with mud. And there was no way that I was going to take the motorcycle down into that by myself. And so I end up turning around and having to head back up the road. And you'll see that I didn't think the camera picked it up, but down below, down where the trail goes down, it was just slick mud, pretty deep mud, and I knew if I went down there I would have definitely gotten myself all hung up. So decided not to do that, and just to turn around and head back. So I'm headed back, and I'm going to pick up a power line, and pick up the power line gravel roads for a little bit. That will run me through the woods for a couple miles on a nice gravel road. So here I am, turning up the hill that takes me up to the power line. I got to make a right-hand corner here, something I almost did not navigate, almost ended up directly in the bushes. That seems to happen a lot with me. And if anybody's watched any of my videos or my Instagram, you'll see that I crash quite a bit. right, and then I head off into the woods. And this road is great. It just runs for like a mile, maybe 2 miles, and it's beautiful gravel road right through the woods. Eventually, the road will come to an end at a T-juncture, and I turn back towards the river and find myself another ATV trail on the other side of that gully. And I just, follow this on down the river. Let it take me where it will. Eventually, this trail is going to bring me out onto a sand barge, and where I'm going to, take a shot at riding in some deep sand. Not very successfully, I might say, but you got to do what you got to do, and this is a great place just to go and play and have some fun on the motorcycle. So here I am coming out of the woods. Was able to stage this shot with a little tripod and my camera, and catch me coming out, and then able to view me riding out onto the sand barge. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to be, dry sand or wet sand or what have you. I mean, you can tell by looking at it that it's actually pretty dry, but you're never 100% certain as to what you're going to get. And so what I did find out is that it's actually pretty deep sand, and that with my traction control turned on, it would clip out when I needed the power, and just killed the power. So it really kind of sucked. And the lesson I learned there is, when in sand, turn the traction control off, because it's just going to hurt you. So here I am going back out onto the sand barge. This time I'm going a little faster. I'm in second gear. I'm having a little more success. But at some point, the sand, I'm just not on my pegs right, and the front wheel digs down. And I lose control, and you'll see here, if you look out the back of the motorcycle in a second, you'll see that I got a power to get myself out of this sand. And turning in the sand was actually really hard as well. It's not easy. I think anyone who rides in the sand at any time will tell you that it's tough. So after brutalizing myself in that, I'm headed off. I want to take a trip out to a power line, and along the way, I went by this construction site. It's a site that I've been eyeing for a couple days. While they've been clearing the land, I want to come up on it and just see what it's like and what's going on. So I thought I might be able to make a tour or two around the property. When I got up here, as you'll see, I realized that this thing was just deep sand. That at this stage they were just clearing the land, and all they did was take the topsoil off. And I quickly found this out and ended up on my side. We eventually got it back up and got going again. And what was nice is that you get to practice in places like this that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily get the chance. And so I took advantage of it, and I took a couple passes around the property, before I headed off to the power lines. So I'm making a turn here, and I pick up some hard pack from the trucks that were working the land, and so I took advantage of it and ran myself up and onto the grass. A smart person probably would have turned around or at least headed out at this point, but no one ever accused me of being smart, and I turned right around and headed back into the sand. To make one more pass across it. And I'm glad I did. It's always a lot of fun, and this is how I'm going to get better, by just practicing in this stuff. So I'm always looking for sites like this, at the early stages of construction, before any of the riding that I would do could damage anything that people are doing. So, and no one ever seems to have a heartburn with it. So I take advantage of it when I find these places. Up over the berm that I originally came in on, and I had completely forgotten about the depth of the sand up here in this corner. And so as I'm making this turn up here, you'll see in a second, I lose the front end of the bike and almost go down. But then I stall it. Whew. After getting it started, I take a run up out of here, up onto this high ground where it's a little stable. I can rest a little bit as I come back around and make a run to get off the property. Here I am on the power line, and I had completely forgotten that this was just a sand trap. And so I'm running along here, and eventually I'll come across some whoops that are actually filled with sand, and you'll see exactly what the result of that is. And right into the bush. It took me a little bit of effort to get this bike up and out of here. You're seeing the abbreviated version of it, but the bike was stuck pretty deep into the bush, and I couldn't get on the lower side of it so that I could lift it with my back and legs. So I literally had to pull it out of the bush before I could get going. But, you know, I eventually pulled it out, not without some effort, and, you know, started up again and headed on down the trail. So at this point, I'm realizing that I'm getting kind of tired, and so I decide that I'm going to break off into the woods. And so I head up onto firmer ground than what the trail has to offer, the sand does. And so I'm headed down this trail, and I realize all of a sudden I'm not feeling too comfortable about this because I'm seeing all these gunshot casings all over the ground. And so I slow it down and kind of proceeding with some caution, and I come out to a clearing up ahead here, and it's a dead end. There really isn't a trail that, or a good trail that leads out of here, and so I end up, you know, turning myself around and headed back. Back out on the power line, I'm just going to run this back out to the road, and I've got one more stop that I want to make before I head home. I want to take a trip over to the sand pit and see what's going on over there, and then after that I'll head back and get my gear off, put my feet up, and probably have a drink. One of the things I like about this trail and a lot of the trails is that they've got a lot of different diverse terrain. A lot of it's flat. I wish there was more hill climbs and probably a little more rocky grades. You know, fieldstone kind of class 4, class 6 type roads, but we don't really have that in Connecticut. But one thing that's nice on here is that the power company, you know, they've been doing a lot of work out here, and so they've, you know, put these trap rock crossings over some low areas where water collects, and so it's just, you know, it's one more thing that you got to navigate, and so you got to ride over them. And as you'll see up ahead here, you know, some of the bigger ones are just very treacherous to try to navigate, and so I usually end up coming to a stop and basically paddling myself across them. I just don't want to end up dropping the bike in the rocks. You know, scratch my heads enough. I don't need to damage them or crack them by dropping it on a rock. Coming up on the entrance onto the property where the sand pits are. You got to run through a couple tobacco fields, and so that means you got to keep your eye out for the farmer. You know, they're running tractors out here all the time, so you got to be very careful that you don't run into one of them. And again, they're giving us the access to the property, so, you know, being respectful and courteous and not being a jerk will, you allow them or at least encourage them to let us come back onto the property. So I always try to kind of pay attention to those types of things, and I think most of the people who come out here do that as well. So you're passing by his barns and by his fields. Like everything in this area, if you come out here in the springtime, this is just muddy and slick and very, very greasy. Eventually, though, it does empty out into the sand pit, of which there's a motocross course actually set up out here, and a lot of the younger guys and their parents who are avid riders actually come out and ride. Today, I didn't go into the sand pit, in that particular sand pit. I just didn't have the energy to battle with the sand, so I kind of passed through on the gravel roads. As I'm sitting here at the train track, I noticed the ATV track off to the left, and I've seen that a couple times. I've never ventured down there, but I definitely have got to put it on my bucket list of trails to ride in this area, because I'm always seeing guys coming out of there on ATVs or on dirt bikes. So I want to go down and check it out. I think I'll probably do it before the summer's over. So as I'm coming up the top of this hill, I'm going to slow and make a turn to the right into the upper sand pit. This is a more active pit that they're still mining. I believe they probably haul some material from the other one over here. But at any rate, so here I'm making a run at the hill across the way. Don't quite have all the speed that I should. I think I eventually hit second gear before I get to the hill, but honestly, I just don't have the speed, and I start spinning out, and you'll hear the traction control kick in, and it cuts off the power, and it's everything I can do with clutch and throttle control to keep this thing upright and going up the hill. Not one of my better hill climbs. Well, when I got up here, I realized I was running out of energy and probably should head home before I hurt myself somehow. So I just kind of limped down the hill, and probably should have had more speed coming down the hill, because when I came off it and I went off to the right to head out of the sand pit, I got tied up in some deeper sand, and having a little more speed, a little more power down off the hill and through there, I probably would have made it a little easier. these are, all these places that I ride, they're great little playgrounds to help me, kind of work on my skill sets, because let's face it, I'm a rank amateur when it comes to this stuff. But I'm having fun, and here I'm on the way out, and this is the road out of the sand pit, and once I hit the tarmac, I'm headed for home. So, this is Guy on Two Wheels and Luca Fairhot. We'll see you on down the road. You keep the shiny side up.
And we'll send you away with this song here now.